So my name is Garrett Sawyers. There was a man who kept a fishing log, and one day he was looking back through the pages and found August 14th, 1972. And on the log it said, "Went to sea, caught nothing." But there was a boy who kept a journal. And in the journal, he also had an entry for August 14th, 1972. It said, "Went fishing with Dad. It was the best day of my life." There is a lot to be said about perspective. We can be looking at the same thing and have a totally different outlook based on our perspective. You know, to the father, it was just another day where nothing was accomplished. But to the son, it was an important day because he got to spend the day with one of the most important people in his life. Today, we're going to look at another idea that's all about our perspective. We're going to talk about our wealth. And you may be thinking, well, I'm not wealthy, but it's a matter of perspective. If you don't remember anything else in the lesson, I want you to remember that our prosperity is based on our perspective. Our prosperity is based on our perspective. We're going to see in Psalm 73, we're going to see two perspectives of prosperity. In Psalm 73, if you're not already there, turn your Bibles there. That's where we're going to be hanging out for the next few minutes. First, we see Asaph's perspective. Asaph is the author of this psalm. He was a servant to King Hezekiah. And he writes this psalm basically because the wicked are prospering and the righteous are suffering. And at least that's what he sees. And so he writes this psalm because he's frustrated with God. And he's asking why these things are happening to him and to the wicked people. And we see his perspective of the wicked people in verses 3 through about 14, where he's talking about how that, he's almost envious of the wicked because they're prospering so much. He's talking about how they have no pains in their death. He says their body is fat, which is a sign that, they have easy lives and they have plenty of everything they need. They don't get in trouble like other people. They aren't plagued like other people. They still show bad qualities like pride and violence, but yet they have everything that they need. They still have wicked intentions. They make fun of people in poverty. They don't respect God. They have influence over other people. And yet they're still prospering. And because of that, we see his perspective on his own righteousness. And he says that his righteousness, his faithfulness to God, is worth nothing. And he exaggerates, saying that he's never sinned against God, but all that is vain. But that's just his perspective. And since our prosperity is based on our perspective, we see a second perspective in this psalm that shows a fuller picture of what's going on. Because we have this split about halfway through. Because secondly, we see God's perspective. God's perspective. And in verse 16, he says, "I pondered to understand this. It was troublesome in my sight." He doesn't understand what's going on until verse 17. He says, "Until I came to the sanctuary of God, then I perceived their end." When we don't understand what's going on in life, we have to go to God. And that's what Asaph decides to do. And then we get this description of what's really going on in his situation. In verses later on, we see that he's talking about how that the wicked are going to be destroyed and how that it's going to happen very suddenly. How that they don't realize it, but bad things are coming for them, and they just don't realize it. That's what's really happening that Asaph didn't see without God. And so as he starts to conclude the psalm, we see his apology, but we also see his priorities. In verses 21 and 22, he essentially has to go back to God and say, I picture this little kid, going back to his dad, and, he says, how I accused you of all those things? Sorry about that. Because he's realizing that he didn't see the full picture of what's really going on, but he does now. And he apologizes to God, and he restates his priorities because he goes on to say later on, it says in verse 25, who have I in heaven but you? And besides you, I desire nothing on earth. He's seeing that God is the one who sees everything, and he wants to be with God and see what he sees and have that on his side. So what does this mean for all of us? I think there's a major takeaway here in the fact that we have to trust God's perspective of the bigger picture. Because we may not always understand what's going on. We live in a world that is constantly just, valuing your prosperity and your popularity based on, what car you drive, what clothes you have, what phone you have, everything that's worldly. But we have to trust the bigger picture, what God sees, because none of the other stuff really matters. All that matters is God. So the question becomes, are we going to have the perspective of the Father that simply says it's another day where nothing's happening? Or we're going to have the perspective of the Son that says this is another great day that I can spend and have a relationship with our Father. Our prosperity is based on our perspective. Thank you.